Why do we have all these athletes who have problems? You look at Ronnie Coleman, destroyed his body. We forget how powerful nutrition can be in mitigating injuries, in reducing recovery time. 40s and 50s, they're going to run into a wall and be like, what the hell happened? We're talking about traditional diets of low fat, consistent carb ingestion, which is destroying their glycemic variability. So there's such a dysfunction in how things are approached traditionally that nobody really has grasped, even though the data's out there. I'm focusing in on the exercise science aspect of how do we maintain or improve performance without destroying our health? Because that's one of the biggest things I see in athletes today. I have tons of clients I've worked with over the years. I have a client right now. He's in his 50s. He's been a runner, endurance athlete for 30 years, and his body is destroyed. Absolutely destroyed. And a lot of it is overtraining, but a lot of it is diet. And we, when we hear stories about, like Professor Tim Noakes, who got into learning about the ketogenic diet because he was an endurance athlete who was pre-diabetic and trying to figure out, like, wait a second, why do we have all these athletes who have problems? You look at Ronnie Coleman, destroyed his body. There's a lot of things going on in that specific, circumstance. It's not just diet related, obviously, but there's a huge aspect of lifestyle and nutrition that when we look at the impact of specific training for sports, especially at a high level, we forget how powerful nutrition can be in mitigating injuries, in reducing recovery time, in allowing for higher volumes and high intensities without injury and all of these other things, right? Extending the amount of time you can work before you get into overreaching and overtraining. A lot of that stuff nutrition helps a big amount. And we talk about managing your training volume. We talk about managing your intensity. We talk about even getting more sleep. But nobody talks about how does nutrition affect all that stuff.
Yeah.
And that's a huge piece of what I want to look at.
It's a big hole, man. It's a sad story to see play out too, because I see it time and time again, especially in, bodybuilding. Like obviously in the enhanced side of things, you got people abusing performance enhancing drugs, and that's kind of, one foot in the grave to a lot of extent there. But like even in the natural bodybuilding space, I was just talking to Greg about this yesterday. It's like, I'm really excited to see what I look and feel and perform like when I'm 73 years old, and compare that to other natural bodybuilders that are still, prioritizing their sleep, prioritizing their training, like doing all the right things from a natural bodybuilding standpoint, not abusing the drugs, but not really focusing on the type of foods that I am. Like they're eating more of a, if it fits your macros approach, higher carb, stuff like that.
They won't make it that long.
Yeah. I'm looking at it. I'm like, man, I'm seeing this play out, and we're all young, quote unquote, now. So like we can get away with stuff. There's, it's hard to distinguish the lines, but I'm telling you, man, in 30 years, the way I eat relative to the way they eat, it's going to make a difference.
It won't even take 30 years for many of them. It'll be in the next 5 to 10. 40s, 50s, 60s, 40s and 50s is going to start, they're going to run into a wall and be like, what the hell happened? Because especially in bodybuilding, we're talking about traditional diets of low fat. We're talking about traditional diets of consistent carb ingestion, which is destroying their glycemic variability, right? You have glycation, you have all of the things that come with the ups and downs of glucose spikes all the time. You have metabolic dysfunction in the constant up and down of food intake. And there's just a whole bunch of things, not even talking about the PED aspect of it, but even in the natural space, there's such a dysfunction in how things are approached traditionally that nobody really has grasped, even though the data is out there. And that's one of the reasons I really am passionate about this, because the data exists. And the problem is people either refuse to acknowledge it, don't recognize it, or are purposely covering it up. And my goal in my career as a doctor, in my career in research, is to uncover and talk about all of these things that the data is already there. I'm working on 3 papers to publish right now, and all of them are if you can't see the data and what this data means, looking at the research that exists today, you're being ignorant on purpose.
So let me ask you this. A lot of people in the natural bodybuilding space, I'll speak to that because I'm familiar with it, but like a lot of them are in the, evidence-based crowd. Like you get the Lane Nortons out there, and I've had Lane on the podcast a few times, I think. But like he's all about the data, looking at the research studies, yet he's still an advocate for the flexible dieting approach and not really putting much emphasis on any specific macronutrient. Like, there's a lot of people in that space.
Sure.
So if
Sure.
the data exists and they're trying to compile all this data, why do you think they've not changed
Because the data exists in the context that people aren't willing to recognize because it loses them money.
How
So Lane Norton's a great example. He's the first one who will argue and make esoteric and convoluted justifications for why he's looking at data a certain way and what it means. And he won't recognize some of the things that are very obviously in front of him. And we'll talk about some of that stuff today. There is, and there's also another aspect of this that to lay the groundwork for what we'll talk about. One of the misconceptions that I want to talk about in this list of things, because most of the stuff we'll talk about is misconceptions, misunderstandings, or things that are applied out of context. And the biggest one I think that we can talk about, I say biggest a lot, but I think this is the foundation where a lot of this misunderstanding comes from. And that is the zealotry of ketogenic practitioners, we'll call it enthusiasts, or carnivore enthusiasts, has sent the message and is understood by most people that we think, I'll say we because I'm in that group as well, that going keto is better than being a carb-fueled athlete. That you will perform better if you go keto, if you are fat adapted, and all of these other types of concepts and ideas. And this is the fact, this is what I'm seeing in the data. That is absolutely not the case at an acute level. So just being fat adapted won't make you a better athlete. All of the data for endurance athletes, for strength athletes, for CrossFit athletes, for ball sports athletes, all of the data shows that from a performance perspective in a short to moderate time frame, 6 to 12, 18, even 30 weeks, right? That the performance difference between the two nutrition protocols is pretty much the same. There is no significant better performance for fat adapted athletes over carb adapted athletes.
I mean, oftentimes the carb or the keto adapted athletes are showing a decrease in performance because so many of those
initially,
like in 2-week spans.
Right. If you account for the adaptation period, there's always a dip and then it comes back, and over time it equals out essentially.
Yeah.
So that kind of is used by the carb zealots, let's call them the carb zealots, the carb camp, to say, well, there's no better performance, so why does it matter? What we're doing works. We've been doing it for 50 years. Why do I need to change anything? And that, I think, is where we've missed the opportunity as people in the space to say, well, here's some things that you probably haven't considered of why you should do that. And that has to do with the metabolic health aspect, right? The focus on social media and the focus on most sport science, exercise science, content influencers and doctors out there on the internet is two things. It's body composition or performance. Nobody is talking about sustainability of their sport, sustainability of competition, or long-term health after competition is over. Right? Nobody's talking about that. Nobody's talking about, hey, my nutrition is going to be a major factor in my injury risk. It's going to be a major factor in my ability to recover. It's going to be a major factor in how long I can play this sport or do this activity before my body falls apart. Mm-hmm. And on the side, on the front side, and this is where we don't have the data. So I'm talking about all the stuff we do have data on. On the back side of things, we still don't have data. And I don't know if we will ever really have data outside of anecdotal, which there's a lot of anecdotal information here. And that is the benefits of keto, the benefits of being fat adapted come in the stabilization of health markers and metabolic performance that allows an increase in volume, an increase in intensity, a faster time of recovery that allows improved performance beyond current standards over time.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I'm a huge advocate for playing the long game and sustainability. I mean, like that's what I've pretty much hung my hat on. I mean, I'm excited to keep doing this. I mean, I've been doing it for over a decade now, and I got no plans of deviating.
Yep.
But a lot of people, man, they're very short-sighted in their goals. They want to lose 20 pounds by next week. And it's like, you got to totally reframe how you think about your compounding actions day in, day out. What you put in your mouth, how you move your body. Like, you got to think in terms of what can you sustain from now until the day you die.
Exactly. And and outside of sport, that's a great way to put it, because it's also lifestyle. Even if you're not competitive, even if you just want to be active and fit and healthy the rest of your life, there's certain things that you can do to sustain your physical ability for longer. And nutrition is one of the top 3 things.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, honestly, like, just simply from a recovery standpoint, man, like before I was eating keto, like, I would get like that lactate burn. You'd be doing a set of bench press with dumbbells, and then you'd hit that burn, and then like you're just out. You get that lactate threshold, and it's all she wrote. I don't ever get that anymore. Like, I cannot tell you the last time I felt that lactate sensation from
we'll talk about that. That's actually, for sure. That's on my list.
Let's just peel the curtain back, man. What order of attack do you want?
So that's we talked about the first thing, right? So the first thing to understand that everybody should understand, and this could be a good thing, or a feather in the cap for the carb camp, right? There's no better performance directly from being fat adapted. It's pretty much the same. Every study you look at, all the meta-analysis, all the different systemic critical reviews and systematic reviews, they all come out the same. The performance is about the same. On the flip side, we do know, and this is extrapolation from the mechanism paired with the correlation, right? The relationship between my 15 plus years coaching and the hundreds of people that I've seen who have had this response in my own experience, right? As we get more fat adapted, we get less aches and pains, we get less fatigue, we can do more intensity, we can do more volume, all of that stuff, right? And that comes, in my opinion, directly from lower oxidative stress and inflammation. When we're fat adapted and we're utilizing fat as a more abundant and available energy source, we don't have the same amount of oxidative stress and inflammation in our body that our body has to fight with and deal with. And it can go towards repair and function instead of sending everything off to go fight the fires. Right. Yeah. So that, to me, is the biggest impact in long-term sustainability. I don't have to worry about as much my risk of overtraining. I used to overtrain when I first went carnivore in 2018. I had overtrained myself to the point where if I did more than 2 days a week, I was instantly overtrained. Like, I was done. Like, I had to take a break. I couldn't do it. My body, the line of "you're doing too much" was easily stepped over. I was always basically in overreaching, just about to be overtraining. And within 90 days of going carnivore, I was able to get back to 4, 5, 6 days a week and be good.
Mm-hmm.
Right. The overwork that I had done wasn't because of the work I was doing. It wasn't because of CrossFit. It wasn't because of my workouts. I wasn't overtraining because I was doing too much. I was overtraining because I was doing too much in the big picture of my overall load of stress, which mostly was coming from my nutrition.
Yeah.
So when I fixed my nutrition, that overall stress load just dropped. And my body was like, oh, I now have all these resources to work on repair and recovery. Guess what? Now you can work out more.
Yeah, it's all boils down to like partitioning of resources. And I feel like once you become deeply fat adapted, you're able to tap into a more robust fuel reserve, obviously, first and foremost. But then like the efficiency of your body to recover, to repair, to replete and build is enhanced exponentially.
Oh,
and then
absolutely.
To do the same thing requires less work
Bingo.
by the body on a cellular level. And I feel like that compounded over a lifetime is night and day from those consuming predominantly carbohydrates.
That is what it's all about. Yeah, absolutely. If you're an athlete now and you want to be an athlete indefinitely, then being fat adapted is where you should be. Absolutely.
Thank you for watching this episode of The Savage Clip. If you want to see the full-blown deep dive, check out the full episode here, and I'll see you there.